Welcome back to the Rear Wing Report with your host, Ryan, and me, Coach Bell. Ryan, how are we doing today?
Great, Steve. How are you?
I am doing better than Carlos Sainz side pods.
Yeah, that's the truth. That's the truth. What a weekend,
Amen.
though. Hey, a lot more exciting than Japan. That's for dang sure. So,
Oh, thank goodness.
yeah, no, I mean, going from Suzuka to Bahrain this past week is, I mean, I couldn't ask for more. Honestly, there was, people were overtaking. That was cool. So it's pretty unique to see that in racing.
Yeah, yeah, especially in Formula One after last week. I think the only other thing we could have asked for would be to be there, me and you. But other
Yeah,
than that, it
we
was
need
wonderful to watch.
we need our season passes or something.
What we need is we need to get our subscriber total up. We need people to download, rate, review, subscribe, share the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
That way we can bring you live content, trackside.
Yeah,
After
folks,
we,
follow us on everything. I mean, hit us up. IG numbers are through the freaking roof, man. IG numbers going up. You can find us there at Rear Wing Report on Instagram. You can also find us there on Twitter as well, and all of our other socials. Pretty much everything's Rear Wing Report. But yeah, hit us up, subscribe, view. I don't know what it is. Tell your grandma, tell your mailman. I don't know what
tell
it
your
is, but
grandma's mailman.
we need those numbers through the roof.
Yeah, we can't rely on Lawrence Stroll to give you a shot in the cockpit.
I know. But actually, I have a new aspiration, and that's I want to be Martin Brundle. I want to take his place at the grid walk at the beginning of the race. I think I would be a great host for that, even though I wouldn't know who any of the people are.
I would pay more than $0 to watch that simply because you don't know who they are, and you would just go up to them and be like, "Who are you? Why are you here?"
Yeah, what brings you here? It's like just some random celebrity. Like he's shouting out celebrities' names across like 100 feet away, and I'm just like, dude, crazy pull. Like I don't even know the difference between Jason Statham and that other dude or whatever. I always get those two mixed up. But regardless, we're here to talk racing. So, what did you think overall about the race?
I thought it was a lot of fun. I was really happy that we got a safety car, obviously, to kind of jumble things up. But I was,
I don't know if they're as happy as you, but
I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit. But like, for once, they didn't screw up, right?
True.
And
True.
they had their choice, going into that safety car, and I mean, I think that it was just the best opportunity to see some actual racing. Oscar kind of disappeared down the road for a while. And then, luckily Carlos Sainz and Yuki Tsunoda brought us all back together. So I was excited about that, but I was never in like, I wanted, Oscar to win, and I was never worried about him winning. I don't know. Were you concerned when they came back together?
No, I sent my buddy a screenshot of my pick where I wanted Piastri to win and Bryson DeChambeau to win the Masters tournament. Didn't happen. 1-4-2. However, yeah, I literally I told my buddy, I said, don't know if you should necessarily tail me on this one. But he did it anyways, and once that Piastri win went in there, and by the time it was lap 20, I was like, yeah, this one's in the bag. Like, he's not going to mess up, right? So, yeah, it was an outstanding victory for him. And, like, overall, just before we get into everything here, Oscar Piastri, P1, George Russell, P2, Lando Norris, P3. So that was our top three for our Bahrain Grand Prix. But yeah, let's get into Oscar a little bit. It was a pretty dominant victory, right? If you had made your long shot or your best bet from last week about, hey, everybody's going to be 15 seconds ahead or the leader's going to be 15 seconds ahead, it would have hit. I mean, my man is almost 15 and a half seconds up the road from everybody. It looks like he looked like Verstappen from last year, right? At the beginning of the season.
Yeah, I saw a video on Instagram. Somebody was at the track, and they took some video when he was 15 seconds ahead, and they just posted, like, this is what it actually looked like. This is ridiculous. And he goes by, and then you're just like, where are they? Where are it's an uncomfortable amount of time.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you see, a couple cars coming through and you're just like, "Oh, wow."
There they are. Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's the crazy thing about being in person versus like on the television. Like you cannot tell like just how far that gap really is, right? We're so used to Indy. It's just like, oh, there's a car going by at all times. Yay. So
Right?
it's a little bit different, but yeah, I mean, he was so far ahead of everybody. And to me, this was just like nail in the coffin. Let's stop playing that car down. We know it's a supercar. I don't believe any other thing that anybody says that says the McLaren is not the superior car. It's BS.
Yeah, and Piastri even said it after the race, right? He said, "Let's stop pretending that we don't have the best car."
Yeah,
Like, yeah, he had the best car, but he had the best weekend. I mean,
right.
he dominated Norris in terms of, pace throughout most of the track. Norris seemed to have a little bit more pace down the straights in the DRS for whatever reason. Maybe it's a difference in setup. Maybe he got a better exit out of a couple of the turns. But in almost every single corner, Piastri is faster, right? And it's where you're going to make up a lot of time. Like they're not going to be that different in terms of straight line speed. And Piastri is better throughout every single corner almost. So, I just picture perfect weekend from him. Super calm. He's almost just like a robot, just like cool. Like, did you hear him after the race when he goes? They're like, "What do you think?" He goes, "It's great to win at our second home." Like, it was like, "Hey man, are you excited or are you tired? Like, what's going on here?"
Yeah. I
But
mean, we even talked when we talked Piastri at the beginning of the season, our very first episode. You were like, I'm team Oscar. Like, he is that guy. Like, you even called out like Christian, by name, and we're like, yeah, he even says on like Drive to Survive, we are definitely would look at Piastri more of a champion in terms of like his mindset. And I think this weekend showed a lot of that too. Like, I think that's what it's going to come down to at the end of this year. I don't think, anybody's going to be fighting McLaren for the top spot, but that drivers championship is going to sure be interesting. I think it'll be awfully close between those two teammates.
yeah, and like that's the thing that kind of stuck with me is he's sitting there and he's what 3 points back of Lando now. But if you think about like the first four races that we've had now, he's made one mistake, right?
Right.
And that was in Australia when he went off. But then he didn't compound that mistake. He didn't freak out. He got back on the track and then was able to recover um, to, I think it was P9, P8, something like that. I can't remember off the top of my head. But eh, like, there's such a stark contrast between him and his teammate. Like, yeah, Lando is ahead right now, but that's only because Oscar made that one big mistake,
Yeah.
and Lando had a big lead on him, and now
Hmm.
it's down to 3 points.
Yeah.
And it's because he keeps making mistakes. Like, Lando compounds his mistakes, and I'm sure we're going to get into it here in a minute, but like, it just, like you said, he has the mindset of a champion, and he's just different. Like, that same mistake isn't going to happen again. We're not going to be seeing him making multiple mistakes in a race. At least it doesn't seem like we did. And he made those mistakes his first year and even in his second year, but he really has gotten off to a strong start. And he's just had one bad move in the
Hmm.
entirety of the season. So I've been thoroughly impressed.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Was really impressive by him this weekend. Like, just from qualifying all the way to the end, it was his weekend to win. Like, we'll talk about Lando later, but he does finish P3. He does.
Yeah.
He does make it there, but it was pretty outstanding how far Oscar was like ahead of him, and just like those mistakes he wasn't making, right? Like your use of like a compound mistake, like they just keep compounding. Like, that's a really good way to look at it. But Oscar seems like he has no problem working under pressure, and it's just like crazy like how mature he is behind the wheel. Like, he knows what he needs to do. He knows when to put his head down. He says the right information when he needs to say it, and then he just wins his race and he executes his strategy. Like, and it just seems like it was that way for him. And Lando, I don't think he had a problem executing a strategy. I just think, starting towards the middle of the pack there, in the top 10, it really ruined his chances. Like if it was a top 3 start by Lando, it would have been a really interesting race, especially going into turn 1. Like he made up a lot of spots going into that first turn. So,
Wow.
he did,
Got a
yeah,
little bit of a jump.
got a little bit of a jump. But that's, again, mistake number 1, right? So
Yep.
clearly, he, and I love it because Verstappen, like the video circulating all over X today has just been like Verstappen finger, like, not like they're about to start racing, fingers on the radio transmission button already because he's staring at Lando's tire, like going underneath that. So like it, yeah, it just cracks me up. Like, but that's a mistake. Like, that's a mistake you cannot make. If you want to be the driver champion, you cannot make a mistake like that. And that's why a former one's gonna call you out on it, right? He was ready to send that message right away. But again, yeah, like that false start, like it just spiraled into it. And it just, that was just debris of a bad weekend, and especially
Yep.
bad qualifying compared to his teammate too.
Yeah. It just one thing after another seemed to go wrong for him. Speaking of things going wrong, we had George Russell, who finished in second place, who I think by the end of the race was driving the Flintstones car.
Yeah.
That's how much technology he
Yeah.
had by the end of it. But
It was like that little red car with the yellow roof, that
the little Tykes car.
the little Tykes car. Yeah, that's essentially what it is.
Yeah, so he had things that we know of. He had the brake-by-wire failure, which means that his brake pedal, he has to manually press down completely, and it's either going really long, so it's taking him a long time to brake, or it's very stiff, and he's going to get a lot more report on that brake pedal quicker than normal. He had the timing component and the GPS component on his car failed. So at one point when I was watching the race, I'm sitting there. I'm like, okay, he's in second. Then all of a sudden, he just starts tumbling down the leaderboard into 20th. And then they came on. They're like, hey, he's not in 20th. He's in second. I'm like, well, it'd be great if you could show me that. But
Right.
his DRS didn't work. And they said, your steering wheel might go blank. You might have control over nothing. And yet he still pulls out second place.
Yeah, what a drive, honestly. Like, that to me is one of George Russell's most impressive. Like, that man just finds a way to put it in P2. Like, it's I want him to win. I want him to win so badly, but like that, like, yeah, I mean, it's a magnificent drive. Like, to be able to take all those difficulties. He's also, battling overheating issues and, that malfunctioning DRS system and everything like that. And he still puts it in P2, right? So, like, still we see, and that's the crazy thing is, if he doesn't have those issues, how close is he? How close is he to Piastri? Like, he's at least a couple more seconds ahead of the road. Like,
I don't think so.
You don't think so? You think he's sticking around 15 seconds?
Yeah, because what was the gap when the safety car came out? It was probably 12, 15 seconds.
Yeah.
And he didn't have those issues then, and then he had them later on. Like, I thought that was his chance to get him, but like I said, I wasn't too concerned about it, even though like I was worried about Russell as a driver, because he's one of my favorite drivers. I think he's great. I think you and I both hold him in high regard. But you had Piastri came out on the mediums, right? And then Russell went for the softs. Leclerc went for the hards, which I thought was a pretty interesting choice from Ferrari, just because of the feedback that everybody had given about the hard tires for the entire weekend. Like they got them on and they're like, these things suck. And it's like, well, yeah, like, but everybody's been telling you that they suck. Have you not been listening?
Right.
So I don't know, I found it to be interesting in that sense. And then we had the safety car on lap 32, and it was just like you're sitting there and you look at their stop times and their time lost, etc., in the pit lane. And there's not a whole lot of time lost, like difference between the two of them. But at no point was I sitting there going, "Oh, he's going to pass him," and he's going to stay ahead. I thought he might maybe pass him, but then I was like, Piastri will get him back within a lap or two. And then I felt the exact opposite way when Norris was attacking Russell at the end. I'm like, oh, he's not getting past Norris. He's going to screw up. And sure enough, he did. Like, George Russell, God bless you. You're everything that Lance Stroll isn't.
True. Consistent.
Yeah. But like, just imagine, hey, I don't know when my break's going to take over. And how many people did we see lock up, throughout
Yeah.
that race?
I mean, especially George on P1 or turn one.
Yeah.
A huge lockup. And that could have caused a lot of issues too. You never know.
Yeah. And, I would be interested to see. And I think the only way he had a chance was if he had started on the front row. Obviously, he qualifies P2, and him and Kimmy get the penalty, a one-place grid drop for each one of them for entering the pit lane early after Ocon's crash, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so he drops down. But I think that the Mercedes, like we talked about last week, second best car.
Yeah, absolutely.
But maybe second best driver. No, I'm not ready to say that yet. But
no, Toto's dying for Max to call him right now, and he's ready to displace George. It's gonna happen.
Oh, so we're gonna talk about that on our midweek episode. But it is interesting, that whole conundrum and how George might be playing himself or driving himself right out of Mercedes.
Yeah.
Even though he's doing quite well. So I'm sure we'll get into that in the midweek episode. But the person who struggled and did, as you said, get third was Lando Norris, right? And if you're him, we've kind of gone over his race for the most part. He did have the 5-second time penalty, as we talked about, and then he just had some other like kind of screw ups. But like, if you're him, do you walk away from that race being happy, like, hey, I got third, great, or are you looking at it as a lost opportunity?
Yeah, it's a lost opportunity for sure. Like that to me is an extremely disappointing weekend. I'm sure he feels the same way. He did say, "Well, like we're gonna learn from it and all that." Just typical media talk type of stuff. Yeah, it's a huge setback to him. Just like how we're thinking, McLaren is gonna take the constructors. They know that too, right? And the person you have the most pressure from is your teammate, and he's gonna feel that pressure. So like when a weekend like this happens, when your teammate's kind of proving that he can be a lot better than you, you do have that little bit of embarrassment. It's not like he had that bad of a result, but it was a bad weekend full of a lot of mistakes. And yeah, it just he does pull off some overtakes towards the end, but they were not clean by any mean.
Yeah, I felt much the same way. I think that, hey, a bad qualifying happens, right? And then he has a drive to get back up to the podium. But I still walk away disappointed if I'm him, because P2 is in the cards, should have happened. And, he took too long to pass Hamilton. He passed him outside the track, had to give the position back. So then he has to wait another lap to pass him, right? And George admitted, if there was one more lap, he's passing me. So there's one lap right there.
Mm-hmm.
And then it took him probably 5 laps longer to get past Leclerc than it should have.
Right.
And he locks up, can't get it done, tries to go around the outside, can't get it done, finally gets it done and starts going after George. But it's just like, you wasted so much time, even though you have this great car. And I know he says he felt lost the entire weekend, just kind of clueless. And I mean, that can be a scary place to be. But if you want to talk about, and he talked about it last year, being in the drivers championship, right? And making yourself an actual contender for that, then even when you're lost, you got to be maximizing your points. And he didn't. He left a place on the table, and now he's 3 points clear of his teammate, and he is, 8 points clear of Verstappen and 14 points clear of Russell. Like, that's a problem. He should have been better. and every point's going to count at the end, just like you said. Like it's going to be a wild drivers' championship competition, and I can't see him not having another weekend like this.
Yeah, I think it's well within the cards that it happens again several times. I think it will. It's bound to happen, and yeah, it just goes back to he does want to prove everybody wrong that he does have it in him, but it seems like the large majority of everybody doesn't think that he has it in him.
Well, yeah, it's like they all believe that he's so great at taking ownership over it, but it's like he's beating himself up. And then if he's not beating himself up, he's compounding the mistake. And I think that's just the biggest difference for me is, Verstappen, when he makes a mistake, it's one mistake, right? And usually when he makes those mistakes, it's I'm taking myself out of the race, but I'm also taking my competition out of the race, right? You think
Right.
back to the competition between him and Hamilton, where they're wrecking and, his car's on top of Hamilton's. Like, hey, if I'm not finishing, you're not finishing either. And it's like, yeah, it's an unforced error, but it's an aggressive racing error. Whereas his are just like technical errors of like screwing up very basic things. And it's
Yeah.
just, what are you doing? Like you're screwing up your braking points, you're outbraking yourself, you're going long. Like it just, I don't know. It doesn't mean he can't win the driver's championship. Although we already know, you know, Oscar's going to win the driver's championship. He won race two, winner of race two, wins
I
the driver's
called it.
championship. Yeah, I mean, hopefully you put that bet down when I gave you that information because now I think it might be minus odds for you.
Yeah, probably not a great payout from Vegas there, but it is what it is.
Yeah. So I don't know, just if you're an Oscar Piastri fan, you're walking away and you're like, this is we're in a great spot. And if you're a Lando Norris fan, you're looking around, you're looking over your shoulder and going, For the longest time, too, he was the favored son of McLaren, and now all of a sudden you got Oscar Piastri breathing down his neck, and they're like, "Oh no, it's papaya rules. We're not gonna favor either one of you."
Right.
So I'd love to be a fly on the wall in those meetings.
Oh, it would be so much fun. I would love it. I would leak so much footage to the media, dude. I'd be like, yeah, word for word, he said this. Got like voice clips to prove it and everything. Don't take away my media pass before I even get one, please.
That's the way we could travel race to race.
Oh
Media
yeah, media
passes.
passes. Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. We'll have to look into that. I think we'd still have to pay our expenses, so that's a real problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we'll figure it out at some point. We're going to take a
Absolutely.
quick break though, and then when we come back, we're going to be talking Ferrari. All right, welcome back. We are going to be talking Ferrari now. So Ferrari finished our Grand Prix in fourth and fifth place, respectively. We had Charles Leclerc in fourth and Lewis Hamilton in fifth. They were sitting about 20 and 28 seconds back of Piastri. But they start on a different tire than everybody else. They went with the medium tire when most people went with the soft tire at the start of the race, and opted for a different strategy. What were your thoughts on Ferrari's strategy overall?
I liked it. I thought it was a really good idea. I think that's kind of the decisions that they have to make now to kind of put up that fight with Mercedes. Um, and if it wasn't for the safety car, it would have been perfect. I think they would have been in the best shape. Like I think a lot of teams had a hard time kind of calculating like how much tire degradation they were going to have and everything throughout the race. And I think Ferrari had a pretty good idea of how theirs was going to look. And if it would have happened and they would have gone, still with that original plan of going medium, medium, it would have been a lot better, right? And like if they could have just not had that safety car, they would have been able to catch up, which is interesting. But yeah, once some people are able to box, the top three in the race are able to box, then it's not as suitable of a plan anymore, right? But I thought it was a good gamble, and I think that's kind of the stuff that like that's just the decisions they have to make now.
Yeah, no, I agree. I really like the fact that they went with the medium to start. We talked about last week, like being different, trying something being aggressive. And I really like that they went with the medium tire to start, and then they went with the medium when the safety car came out as well. So they pitted on lap 17. They double boxed them on lap 17, and then they pitted again on lap 32. So they went 17 and then 15 laps on the medium tire. So I think they probably wanted to go a few more laps.
Yeah.
Um, I would have liked to see them go on to the softs. I'm curious as to why they didn't. I wonder if, like George Russell came out on the softs and he goes, "Oh, 24 laps, that's audacious." But, you know, Oscar or not Oscar, Norris immediately got on and was like, "Why is he complaining? That's a great tire. It'll be fine."
Yeah.
Um, and so I just felt like they kind of got conservative at the end. You set yourself up for this great position. Like, why not go for it? You have your fuel load dropping. You're going to be getting lighter and lighter, faster and faster. So you should have less tire degradation. So why not go for it? Like, or at least split the strategies again. Um, whether that's giving Hamilton the soft and Leclerc the hard, or vice versa. But I would have liked to see them fully commit to some type of aggressive strategy throughout the race. I feel like we got 2/3 away there and they were like, I don't think so. So I wonder if they just didn't have any news softs. I can't remember off the top of my head if they used them all or not.
For some reason I feel like they had have used them. So
Yeah, but so Georges were used though.
yeah.
Yeah, like so, like it can be done. I mean, is George Russell a better tire whisperer than Lewis Hamilton, the 7-time champion?
Uh, hey, maybe
Find
he
out.
is. Mercedes kept George over Lewis. So
Well, I think Lewis decided to leave on his own after he
yeah.
drove
Oh
that
yeah.
car.
Oh
His
yeah.
back was screaming, but I'm sure we'll get into that maybe a couple weeks from now when we got some downtime. Did Lewis make the right decision? But um, so at least they trying something new with the strategy, and we saw that kind of pay off. But you said earlier, in Formula One, your biggest opponent and your biggest marker and threat is your teammate.
Right.
So how do you see that Leclerc and Hamilton battle right now?
Yeah. I don't know. It's interesting. It is intriguing to kind of see what's gonna play out with them. I think in a couple of weeks it'll be much more of a serious conversation of like, okay, this is where Leclerc's at, this is where Lewis is at. But I mean, Leclerc's ahead at the moment. You know, he's not necessarily like he hasn't really shown how unhappy he is with the car, which is a lot different than how Lewis has kind of been portraying it. He does not seem happy whatsoever. So, I mean, it's interesting. I think in a few weeks we'll be able to see. But I mean, overall, to me, I don't know if it is that. I don't think it's that big of a deal for Ferrari right now. Like they got to be worried about scoring as many points as they possibly can, and they did that this weekend.
Yeah, I wonder if they don't even care so much about the performance this year as just getting used to the car
Yeah.
and then moving on from that and setting them up for next year. But right now, yeah, it's not close. Like you said, Leclerc is ahead. I mean,
Yeah.
that's not debatable. Like you look at the qualifying times in Q2, Leclerc's 5/10 ahead of Hamilton. And then in Q3, he's 6/10 ahead. And this comes after Hamilton said, "Oh, we found some stuff, and it's going to give me like 2/10 of performance." And it's like, well, if that's giving you 2/10 of performance, you're telling me you're almost a second slower. Like, and I get it. Like, it's got to be wildly different to drive that car, but you're a 7-time world champion for a reason. Like, figure it out. And I personally am sick of the false dawns, right? The false hope that we keep having race after race. Like, oh, hey, did you see these 2 laps that Lewis Hamilton did? Those 2 laps are the fastest 2 laps. And it's like, yeah, because he had the freshest tires, but like I hope he gets it together because I want to see those constant jumbled packs up front, you know, where we're not always having McLaren 1-2 or McLaren 1-3 or 2-3. I liked it today where it was like, hey, we got a McLaren, we got a Mercedes, we got a Ferrari all in the, top three. And then from there, when you look at the starting grid, like I love just seeing a bunch of different teams stacked throughout, and like Pierre Gasly starts in fourth. Like, hey, that's awesome because now our top four positions are held by four different teams.
Right.
And you get down to seven, you got five different teams. You get down to eighth, you got six different teams, and then you get to 10th, and you have, I think it's like seven different teams in the top 10. Like, that's fun. But if Lewis Hamilton's not doing his part, he's not really making an impression on anyone.
Right.
So everybody talks about his middle stint. Like, hey, what about the last stint when you had fresh tires and you were even with everybody else? Like, I don't know. I'm so over the talk about, oh, Lewis Hamilton's going to win his eighth world championship this year because he figured it out at China.
Yeah, good luck. Good luck. I mean, yeah, and you did mention like the upgrades that they brought to the car this week too. Seemed like Leclerc benefited from them a little, you know. So it does, and I wonder what approaches they are taking, like what kind of technical differences they have between the two cars that they have, like which way is Leclerc going, which way is Lewis going, and is that being shared with him, and are they like doing all those things to figure out, do we want this setup for next year? Or do we want it to be like this, right? So
Yeah.
they could be wildly different from each other, right? And we can kind of like Lewis is getting closer. Like he is getting closer over the past few weeks. Like he is getting closer to Charles, not that much, but
Yeah.
he is. So, it could be like one of those developmental things where it's like you're going to start here, I'm going to start here, and we're going to compare our data, and that's how we're going to come together as a team and figure that out too. So, I wonder if there's some of that, kind of going into it as well.
Yeah. I think there was more of that the first several weeks because I was reading an athletic article today and they were talking about that specifically with Lewis. And he kind of said, like, yeah, first couple weeks, I was setting up the car completely different from Charles.
Yeah.
And, this week I went much closer to him and I kind of came back to him. But like the part of that that concerns me is, and I hope it's just me being uneducated on Formula One, but I remember Checo Perez talking about this same thing
Hmm.
last year in his struggle to set up the car. He's like, oh, I'm just going to copy Max. Like, you're Lewis Hamilton. Why are you copying anybody?
True. That's very true. Yeah, that's
Like,
completely fair.
did you forget how to set up a car? Or is it that different that you're going to struggle and now you have to follow Charles? And if that's the case, did you make a mistake? You only have so many years left. There's no guarantee Ferrari's going to be good next year. Tell you what, Mercedes looks plenty damn good this year.
Yeah,
Like,
they look competitive, that's for sure.
a lot more competitive than the Ferrari does for the most part. Now, obviously, we're
Yeah.
kind of overstating this maybe a little bit based upon the fact that they were disqualified from a race, and so I think that obviously things look a little bit different if that doesn't happen. But I just, I don't know. I'm sitting there and I'm just like, man, I tell you what, I am not sitting there being excited about anything if I am Lewis Hamilton. If I'm Leclerc, I'm like, hey, this is great. I'm beating a 7-time world champion. He came in here and everybody thought he was going to be the guy. And instead, I showed them that I'm the guy.
Right.
Like, hey, this is, yeah. Who else do you want to send over here? Send
Yeah.
Verstappen over. I'll dust him too. But it's just like, what are you doing? Figure it out. And it just seems to be a common thing for Ferrari, but they are sitting in fourth in the Constructors' Championship now with 57 points. They're 37 clear of Haas in fifth. You know,
And who
but
are they behind?
they're behind Red Bull.
Max Verstappen.
Yeah, Max Verstappen. Well, not just Max Verstappen though. not
He does
just
have a
Max
point scoring teammate now.
Yes, for the first time in forever. Not to quote Frozen, but like, my God, Max Verstappen. Right now it is McLaren is in first place with 151 points.
Mhm.
Mercedes is second with 93, and Red Bull is third with 71. Now we do know that Verstappen got a shocking sixth place. However, Yuki Tsunoda picked up 2 points for ninth place. So that means that Max Verstappen has only scored 69 out of his team's 71 points at this point in time. So he's still beating Ferrari by himself.
It took us a while to get there, but we got there for that.
Yeah, like I wanted to run the numbers just to make sure
Yeah,
I was.
don't you're exactly right. That's wild. That is funny to think about. Because I was just like, yeah, no, I'm just giving that all the max. But you're like, nope, you got a credit for Yuki, but still, he's still beating Ferrari. Love it.
Yeah. Oh my God. And it's just like, if you're Lewis, you leave Mercedes because they can't give you a competitive car, and you go to Ferrari. And he says, "Oh, well, I always dreamed of wearing red." Well, okay, you had other opportunities to go there. You didn't go there. You left because of the car. Like, let's be honest.
Right.
You left because of the car. They don't give you a competitive car at Mercedes, so you leave. Great. You go to Ferrari. They finished second in the Constructors' Championship last year, and they still might. But early in the season, you got to be sitting there and being like, am I the new Fernando Alonso? Did I just make the wrong choice at the wrong time? Like,
Yeah.
now they're getting my car DQ'd, like, because of ride height. It's just, oh my goodness. So I don't know. Like, let's
It's a
move
lot of
on.
team issues. Yeah, it's a lot of team
Yeah,
issues and everything as well.
yeah. But,
But speaking of an interesting race, though, let's go back to Yuki for a
mhm,
second. He had a little costly misstep for our boy Carlos Sainz.
yeah.
It was an unfortunate move. I There was no harm like intended in that move.
Hmm.
You know, should Yuki have a little bit more control over the car going into that corner? Probably, but a slide like that's gonna happen. And I laughed at the comment that we got saying, "Oh well, I'm surprised it's the first time that cars have made contact tonight."
Hmm.
It usually happens within the first couple laps at that circuit, but it took a while, and you know, Yuki ends up just crashing into the side of Carlos Sainz, and does ultimately end up costing Sainz a really good race. He was having a really good race.
Yeah. I was excited after I watched qualifying. I'm like, hey, this is great. Like, he finally out qualifies Albon, right? Even though Albon kind of got absolutely just disrespected by the FIA, who allows Nico Hulkenberg through and then says in the middle of qualifying two, oh, hey, by the way, Nico Hulkenberg's lap that he beat Albon on shouldn't have been allowed because he exceeded track limits. Like, oh my God.
Yeah,
Like,
that's a
what are you doing?
mess, dude. That's a mess. Yeah, so unfortunate for Alex for sure, but
Yeah.
yeah,
So,
that's tough.
but he forces Antonelli off the road, and he kind of just like outbraked himself. Yeah, he went way too deep into the corner. He was never gonna make the turn, and I think if he had made the turn, maybe he doesn't get the penalty. But I mean, if you watch the replay, he shoots down the inside of Antonelli, and then just locks up and goes like probably 15 feet off the track, and then brings it back on. And it's just like, you are just kind of hoping for a miracle
Hmm.
at that point in time. And then obviously he has to retire the car. But yeah, it's a racing incident. The steward saw it the same way. But yeah, just you got to feel for him at that point in time. Like, and
Yeah.
you just look at the side of his car. It's just got the massive hole in it. You're just like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So it's a miracle that Yuki didn't get a flat tire from that.
Yeah, I'm honestly surprised that like none of that like I think that's all carbon. It's all carbon fiber, isn't it? Like
Yeah.
that's sharp. So I am surprised that Yuki didn't end up causing himself to get out of the race as well. But yeah, it was unfortunate, but it was an unfortunate event, but it happens, And then Yuki ends up securing 2 points for the squad. So
Yeah, and the haters said he couldn't do it. Honestly, bad call by the haters this time.
yeah,
Normally they're on with Red Bull's second driver, but I think he had a pretty good weekend. He was within, striking
yeah,
distance.
yeah.
Uh,
He's 3 positions back from his world champion teammate.
yeah, and I
Not
mean it
bad.
was two until the last lap when Max Verstappen finally passed the Alpine of Pierre Gasly. Like,
Hmm.
is that a sentence that you thought you would have said, at the
No,
start of this year?
no,
Max
dude.
Verstappen finally got past Pierre
He
Gasly on the last lap for sixth place.
Yeah, it's wild. And even I mean, this is totally off subject, but props to Pierre for the weekend that he had too. It was so weird watching the start of the race and seeing an Alpine up there at the front, and I was like, this doesn't feel right. It really doesn't
Yeah.
feel right.
Well,
But yeah,
listen,
it was good.
it didn't feel right. It was great. I was sweating the second Alpine for quite a while from our long shot bet,
Oh
or from
yeah,
our lunch bet, excuse me. And I was like, oh no. And I think he got as high as like seventh place.
I was
And I was
so
just,
happy. I was smiling cheek to cheek, ear to ear.
I was sitting there and I'd gotten back from a coaching clinic. And so I watched it late and I purposely didn't text you because I didn't want to know the end result. Because my worst fear was that you were just going to send me some emoji or GIF that was just going to like haunt me in my dreams for a week. And I was just like, oh, please let him fall. Please let him fall. And luckily he did. He finished I believe 16th on the day, maybe 14th. I can't remember off the top of my head. It was 14th.
Yeah,
My apologies. Should have known because that's where you predicted Lance Stroll in your bonus prediction
yeah.
to finish. Do you remember where Lance Stroll finished?
P17, P18,
It
something like
was
that. Yeah.
17. He was 17 on the timing sheet, and he was second to last out of those that finished the race and were not disqualified.
Right.
As we know,
Yeah. So
Hulkenberg was disqualified for a skid plate, much like Lewis Hamilton was a couple weeks ago. But yeah, Alpine, I mean, great job by them, right? Extracting some big points. And, in the midfield where everything's going to matter this year, and it might come down to a point. Like
yeah.
last week, Mercedes is riding high. They're tied with Ferrari. They're doing a great job. Now, our constructor standings, obviously, we went over the top four, with Ferrari being fourth. Haas is fifth now with 20 points. And Williams, who did not score a point on the day, finishes in sixth. They're 1 point back. Aston Martin is in seventh with 10 points. The Racing Bulls of Red Bull Powertrain are in eighth with 7 points, and then Alpine and Sauber are tied with 6 points apiece. So Alpine rockets up from last to ninth, on the back of Pierre Gasly's point haul this weekend. It's just quite the performance from them, and it just shows. I mean, like one more performance like that, and they're going to be sitting there firmly in the hunt for sixth place with Williams.
Right. Yeah, it'll be fun. I don't know. I think it'll be interesting, and that also puts the pressure on Jack too. You never know. Like if they're trying to maximize their points and they feel like he doesn't have that ability, you might be right,
Yeah.
and I might lose that. I might lose our lunch bet, which is tough. So yeah,
I
it'll be interesting over the like until we get to the halfway point, kind of like where those like Williams compares up to like Alpine and everything like that. But
mhm.
why don't we get into our predictions from last
Oh
week?
God. Why don't we just call it a day? I've
Might
had a
as
pretty
well
good
chalk
time.
it up.
I've had a pretty good time talking to you today, so I think I'm gonna leave, and you can do the predictions. But yeah, we'll go over them. Do you remember what your podium was off the top of your head? I have them pulled up here if you don't remember.
um, Yeah, I have it pulled up as well. Norris, Russell, Verstappen is what I had.
No, that's mine.
Oh, that's your.
Yeah,
Oh, that's yours.
yeah,
Okay, Piastri, Verstappen, Norris. I was
yeah,
one off.
yeah. You did a great job. You nailed first and third. I did get two people on the podium,
Mm-hmm.
just in the wrong spots. Well, I got Norris in the wrong spot. I had Norris, Russell, Verstappen. You had Piastri, Verstappen, Norris. So I think you get a point on that. You know, you got 2 out of 3 correct. You picked the winner correctly, so well done by you. I seem to be off like just every week.
Just
I'm
ever
off
so
by
slightly.
yeah, like I can't buy a break. Like last week, I said it was Piastri, Verstappen, Leclerc, and so I would have had the winner right now. Whatever. And last week you had Verstappen, Piastri, and Norris. Um, and you kept the same podium. You just kind of flipped it around. I might have to call you out for cheating there. But I like it overall. You get a +1 for that. And then your last point, who did you have for that?
My last point, I had Aka.
Yeah, you did have Akan. Um, and he actually screwed you over and finished in 8th.
Yeah.
You know, I had Carlos Sainz, who was in the running for it until my sweet, beautiful mini Prince Yuki Tsunoda destroyed the side of his car and just absolutely wrecked any chance he had of being competitive.
Yeah.
So I feel like I should give myself a point on that one. I won't because I don't actually deserve it, but it's the participation point.
Right.
Um, and then you crushed my butt here too. Again, you had Gabriel Bortoleto. Actually, I need you to say it. I like the way you say it better.
Gabriel Bortoleto.
Yeah, you had him as your last place, your Logan Sargent last place finisher.
Can I technically count that as a win, though?
No.
He's the last active car, you know?
Listen, the judges.
The judges is you.
Exactly. The judges see your point. We've taken it into consideration. And we looked how far away I was from being correct, and we've decided no.
Okay, that's fair.
I'll give you half a point on it. To be fair, yeah, you are correct. He is the last car that is actually classified.
Yeah.
And to finish. So yeah, again, you're doing great with these. I feel like you got a pretty good pulse on what's going on right now. And
All luck.
hey, you know what? Better to be lucky than think you're smart like me and have no clue.
Hey.
Basically, just fade me and do the opposite of whatever I do.
And honestly, if it wasn't for my guy, Kimi Antonelli, you would have been right on your best bet though of the week.
Yeah, I think he got caught out. If you look at the pit stops, and I was pissed about this when I was watching the race because the safety car comes out on lap 32, and he pitted for the second time 5 laps earlier on lap 27.
Yeah.
And so, I don't think he really had a chance at that point in time. Like he just got caught out wrong. Oscar Piastri had almost ended up screwing him over as well. But for a while there, it was looking like, again, another great opportunity. And I was like, oh, yes, I'm finally going to get something right. But it was not in the cards for me. My best bet was both Mercedes in the top 5. Your best bet actually did hit. You said McLaren would have 2 podium positions. So hopefully somebody tailed you there.
Yeah, please do not. Don't do it. I will feel so guilty.
I'm telling everybody I know to invest everything they have. Ditch Bitcoin, ditch NVIDIA, and just put it all into McHugh's picks.
Yeah. Use promo code Rear Wing Report that we don't have. What's up, DraftKings?
The funny part, I don't even bet. But I think I show why I don't bet. And then your long shot, you said Max Verstappen would win. That didn't
it was
happen.
a long shot. It was a long shot. I threw up a Hail Mary and Calvin Johnson didn't come down with it,
Yeah. I did feel very confident. Like, in free practice too that you were wrong, you know, and that's a credit to us doing it before any of the practice sessions.
Yeah.
It was a true long shot. I think you really embraced. I think we both did this week. We really embraced the idea of the long shot bet. Um,
Yeah, I love yours.
I thought for a little bit, I was like, "Ooh, this is going to be good," and then it just all fell apart like a hot mess. For those of you who don't remember, I said that it was going to be Ali Behrman, uh, Kimi Antonelli, and Isaac Hadjar would perform better than their teammates and would outscore their teammates or outplace their teammates. For the record, I was one of three. So, and that was only done because Liam Lawson.
33.3%. You're good.
Yeah, yeah. I guess sure. I appreciate the positivity, but I was beating myself self up. Behrman got beat by Akon by 2 positions. Kimi Antonelli finished 11th. George Russell obviously finished second. So that what didn't work. But Isaac Hadjar did finish 13th while Liam Lawson was duking it out with Lance Stroll and Gabriel Bortoleto
It's good
for
company. Really good company.
Listen, what do you think the best part of their company is? It's not the racing. So, like, what is it? Is it their
It's the
restaurant
vibes.
recommendation?
Oh,
Vibes.
it's the vibes, yeah. Like they're all kind of just doing their own thing back there. And I love that for them. You know, getting overlapped. It's cool. It's a good look. It's interesting. Um yeah, the overall vibes back there seem good. Driving next to Lance would be kind of fun. It'd be kind of fun. It's like, is he gonna hit me? Is he not? Is he gonna hit me? Is he gonna not? It's kind of cool.
Well, it's funny until he gets out of the car and he's like, "Oh my god, I can't believe you did that." Like he starts yelling at you, and then you're like, "Ah, well, I'm not invited to his birthday party anymore."
Yeah.
But yeah, so neither one of us got our long shot bet of the week correct. And then your bonus bet was our guy Lance Stroll in P14, which was actually occupied by my guy Jack Doohan. And Stroll, he only finished three positions away. He was in 17th. He was about 10 seconds away from 14th position, though. So he was all vibes this weekend.
Yeah.
The scary part, though, just I know we're going to move on here in just a second, but scary might be the wrong word, um, and the wrong way to phrase it. But if you look at the standings, Aston Martin has 10 total points, right? And then if you go and you look at the driver standings and you look at who's scored points and who hasn't, Fernando Alonso has no points. Lance Stroll is sitting in 10th in the drivers' championship with all 10 of Aston Martin's points. So if we're going to give Max Verstappen props and credit for outperforming Ferrari, I think we need to give Lance Stroll his credit. He is outperforming by himself the Racing Bulls, Alpine, and Kick Sauber. So,
You're telling me that Lance Stroll has 10 points?
I just double checked it on the F1 website. I couldn't believe it myself, but I'm looking at it right here.
When? View the results. Click that view the results button.
All right, I tell you what. I will go over it for you. So, Lance Stroll in Australia finished 6th and got 8 points.
Anybody now remember that?
In China, he finished 9th and got 2 points. So there is the 10 points that that Aston Martin has right now. So who's the better
I really
value
gave
driver
him the
right
Logan
now?
Sargent treatment right there. That's crazy. But he's scoring points, and I'm treating him like Logan. That's bad. Sorry, that's your guy. But
Hey, yeah, Logan's a beautiful, beautiful man. He's a great race car driver, and I think he just wasn't given enough time. Lance Stroll has shown that if you're given enough time, then you will outscore a 2-time world champion in a car that sucks. So, but I just want to give a shout out to Papa Stroll, right? Obviously, we all doubted him, and right now he's the better driver. Oh, people said Lawrence Stroll doesn't know what he's doing. I don't know. Maybe he does.
Yeah, call me crazy, I guess. Man, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't believe in this. Is wild, man. You just ruined my whole day. That's wild.
You look like you're really
I've seen
going
a
through
ghost.
it right now.
Yeah, I've seen a ghost. Bad.
But all right, so let's go on. I've ruined your day. We can talk about who had the worst day or the worst weekend. It's worst drive, best drive. Let's start with worst drive. Who had the worst weekend for you this weekend?
I mean, man, it can go to so many people. It all depends on which way I'm looking at it. Like, if I'm looking at it from a result standpoint or just a pure disappointment, Carlos Sainz. It's the worst
Okay.
weekend. I honestly though, I think it's the worst weekend for Red Bull. I'm gonna give it to a full team there. If I'm allowed to do that.
You can do whatever you want. It's our podcast.
I would give it to Red Bull. I think it is just crazy how much that car has digressed in the past 2 years. What happened? What happened? How did you go from winning how many did Max win in a row? 20.
No, he won 11 in a row.
11 in a row. Okay, I thought it was a little bit
Yeah.
better than that, but or he won like 21 out of the whatever, amount of races.
The
or
Red Bull
it was,
won
yeah.
all but one race in the year.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I just got my stats mixed up there, but yeah, it's just like wild. Like, what, I don't know what happened to that car, and this weekend just showed it. Like, yeah, you're getting lucky with the V6 with how that thing's driving. Your world champion's complaining about everything about the car, specifically with the front wing. The front wing was the issue the whole time. And that's the one thing he loves. So you're not going to give that to him. So yeah, worst drive, Red Bull.
Yeah, I sat here, as I was making up the rundown for the episode, and I was like, oh, man, who am I going to pick? Because I thought you would pick Red Bull. And so I wanted to, for the sake of debate and discussion, wanted to do something different. And I can't come up with anybody else. Yeah, hey, Carlos Sainz. I could easily write that off and go, Carlos Sainz showed he has the pace. He showed that he can perform. He just got caught out in a racing situation. But yeah, Red Bull had an emergency meeting after the race to hey, we got to fix this. And now, number one. And then Helmut Marko is interviewed and says in an article by ESPN and quoted by The Athletic and F1 Planet and motorsport.com and everybody else, he's like, yeah, we're really concerned that Max is going to leave because according to several different reports, he has a clause in his contract that if he's not P3 by the midway point of the season, then he can walk away for no penalty, which we're going to get into that in
his manager did some crazy stuff with that contract, and I love it. That's crazy. That's a wild clause.
Yeah,
we'll get into that a lot next week, though.
Yeah, but it's just screams of, and I said this last week too, it screams of Mercedes, from a couple years ago, apologizing for the car and, just being all out of sorts. You're panicking and being like, we need to have an emergency meeting. What are you going to do after the race? Hey, the car sucks. We need to fix it. By the way, we have a race this weekend as well. There's no time to fix it. I don't know. I just, yeah, terrible weekend from them. It's a great pick by you. I'm going to second it. I'm just going to trust your instincts from now on. Honestly, I'm blindly almost going to, whoever you said had the best weekend, I'm giving it to them too. But who did you think had the best weekend?
Pierre Gasly. I think he's had the best weekend. I mean, putting that absolute tractor of a car up there, he started P4 after the penalties, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, started P4, right? And he's able to put it in the top 10, right? He finishes 7th. So he does lose a couple of places, but, he also didn't expect to be able to fight, Mercedes and Ferrari and McLaren, right? So that's a great drive for me overall, and I think it's a great result for him, and I think it puts more pressure on our guy and might screw me over on a lunch bet that his teammate might get dropped soon.
Yeah, it's is he's a close second for me. I did say I was going to follow you, but I kind of had this one set in stone. I had it written down in my notes. I don't see how I can give it to anybody besides Oscar Piastri.
Yeah,
You were
dominant.
talking about, yeah, dominant, and you mentioned like, oh, hey, putting pressure on your teammate. And I think that's exactly what Piastri did to Norris. And we've seen Norris, when the pressure's not on, has faltered these last couple weeks. And so I think that Piastri not only had the best weekend in terms of performance, but he had the best weekend in terms of setting himself up for the future, right? Now all that pressure is squarely on Lando. Lando's the one who has to answer all these questions. And Piastri, being the just like absolute robot that he is just like, cool, let's get in the car, let's go race. All right, awesome job, everyone. Another P1.
Yeah, when he was
Hooray.
like, "It's gonna be a fun party tonight," I was like, "Oh my gosh."
Yeah, and then immediately goes, I won't partake. I have to race next weekend. Like, he's like a less like verbose Max Verstappen. He's just
Literally,
like,
yeah.
yep. All right. I love racing. Like, and like that's awesome. And I just think that he changed the narrative. And now Lando walks away with a P3 and people are like, you suck. Like
It's wild. Lando is getting a lot of hate. He is getting a lot of hate. So it is a little wild how how much one race can change everything. But yeah, I agree with you. And like it's the same thing with Max last week. A dominating weekend overall. That's what takes it, right? So I was trying to be a little bit different with my pick
mhm.
there. So I think we agree with each other with our top two best drives there. So
Yeah, I think he
yeah.
had a great pick. And then very briefly before we get out of here, for those of you who maybe are golf fans or just kind of keep an eye on things, the Masters was this past weekend. Obviously, Jim Nance says it's a tradition unlike any other, and it's the most prestigious golf event in the world, and it's the event that every golfer wants to win. And so I wanted to. I didn't really prep you for this. I just kind of put it on there very vaguely, but I wanted to ask you two questions. Number one, so Rory McIlroy wins the Masters. I don't know. Are you familiar with Rory McIlroy's history at the Masters?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and everybody in the gallery, I don't know if you watched it. I actually finished watching the race, turned the race off, and was able to watch the start of the playoff hole between him and Justin Rose. And so it was great timing to go from one sporting event to the next. But the gallery and everybody there wanted Rory to win, right? And everybody, they're Rory, like just enthused beyond belief that he's going to win. So my first question to you is, what driver, if they won, would get, whether it's a World Drivers' Championship or even just a race, what driver would get that response? And you look at all the other pros, I'll give you a second to think about it. You look at all the other pros that are there, like Shane Lowry and, you know, Tommy, I think it's Tommy Fleetwood and a couple other guys are like giving him bear hugs and they're starting to cry because he won. And they're just so happy for this guy. What current driver on the grid do you think would get that type of reaction if they won a race or if you want to go championship?
Good question. I have many immediate thoughts.
Thanks, Oscar Piastri.
My first thought is George Russell.
Okay.
I think a lot of people would be really happy for him to kind of be able to win a race this year,
Except for Max Verstappen.
except for Max. Yeah. Oh, I don't know who is there a correct answer to this question?
I don't know if there's a correct answer. It just got me thinking. I thought it was
Who would? Yeah, that's an interesting question. That's a good one. Um, and somebody that maybe hasn't won a race in a long time. I mean, if Fernando won a race,
yeah.
that would be lit. That would be fun.
That,
Yeah, I think he would kind of get the same treatment if
mhm.
Fernando like came back and won another world championship. Are you kidding me, dude? It would
Yeah.
be electric. Never gonna
Yeah, or
happen.
even
But
or even another race. He's now gone half his career without winning a race.
yeah, Okay.
Yeah, he was my pick for like the World Drivers Championship. Everybody would be like just pumped about that. But my pick for a race win was Nico Hulkenberg.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You know,
He's
like I
never won one, has he?
no,
Yeah. Okay.
he has he's been in F1 for quite a while. But he's never finished on the podium. He actually holds the most. He has the record for the most starts in F1 history without finishing on the podium. And so I feel
Poor
like
guy.
he's a good dude. People seem to vibe with him, and I think that people would like that. They'd be like, finally, right? Even if he just got third place, everyone would be like, yes, he did it.
Yeah.
Um, and then my second question was, so the Masters is the one tournament that everybody wants to win besides Monaco, right? What do you think might be the one race that Formula One drivers want to win? Because everybody wants to win Monaco. That's
Mm,
the layup answer.
it just depends on the circumstances. If
Hmm.
it would be a driver's home race, I think would be the second best thing.
All right, so let's put it to you then. What race would you want to win? Because we know Papa Stroll is going to give you a shot here, second half of the year.
What
You can win
race would
one.
I want to win?
Yeah, you can win one race.
Yeah, Monaco's too easy of an answer, I feel like. I would love to win it in Vegas.
You just want to go to Vegas.
Yeah, I just want to go to Vegas. But if I got to win in Vegas,
Mm.
go to the Sphere after, have a good time, then go play some slots, it'd be a good time. What about you?
I think I would go with probably Silverstone.
Okay.
I
Yeah,
feel like it's
I was
like the
thinking that.
the legacy track, right? Either that or Spa. Like Spa,
Hmm.
just it's a badass track. I feel like you got to have some balls to win there. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so it's just quick little aside on golf, but wanted to see where your thoughts were.
Yeah. No, I like it. I like that. That's a nice stuff.
All right, Ryan, I think it's about time to get out of here.
It sure is. We will have our next episode coming up here later in the week, previewing the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. So stay tuned for that. Make sure that you like, view, rate, subscribe. Tell your mailman's grandma, your grandma's mailman, to follow us on social media. Pretty much Rear Wing Report everywhere you can think of. And then you can also email us at any time. Do you remember that one off the top of your head? I can never remember.
It is the rearwingpod@gmail.com.
At the rearwingpod@gmail.com.
Yeah.
Obviously, one of us has control.
Yeah. Make sure you check out we'll have another Instagram poll up for you tomorrow. So make sure you check that out as well.
All right, Steve. It's been a pleasure, buddy.
All right, Ryan, you have a great night, buddy.